My beloved child. There is a silence around you that you have learned to ignore, but silence is never empty, it is always full of truths waiting for the right moment to be heard. Somewhere close to you, closer than your shadow, someone is breathing carefully, choosing every word, every smile, every pause, because their heart is cracking in places you cannot see. They laugh when they should cry, they nod when they want to scream, and they say they are fine because they believe their pain is safer inside them than in your hands. This is not weakness. This is devotion taken too far. Every night they replay the same question in their mind, again and again, wondering if protecting you is worth the cost of slowly losing themselves. And still, they choose you. They choose silence. They choose to let their heart break quietly so your world can stay loud and safe. You were never meant to notice this, and yet, you are here now, because truth has a way of rising when it can no longer stay buried. Listen carefully now, because what you are about to understand is not ordinary, and it is not something that happens to everyone. This person did not start breaking all at once. It happened slowly, in moments that looked harmless from the outside. A swallowed sentence. A forced smile. A truth paused and then abandoned. Each time they decided, just this once, I will not say it. Just this once, I will carry it alone. Over time, those small decisions stacked on top of each other like invisible stones on their chest. They became the strong one, the calm one, the dependable one, while inside them a quiet storm kept growing. They learned how to hide exhaustion behind kindness, how to hide fear behind logic, how to hide love behind distance. The reason their heart is breaking is not betrayal, not hatred, not a lack of love. It is the opposite. They love so deeply that they convince themselves their pain does not matter as long as you are not burdened by it. And that belief, my child, is slowly destroying them. There is a moment, and it is closer than you think, when silence becomes heavier than truth. This person is standing right at the edge of that moment. They wake up tired even after sleeping. They feel lonely even when surrounded by people. They question their worth even when they are needed. They are afraid that if they speak, everything will change, and if they stay silent, nothing will ever change. So they remain stuck in between, slowly fading while appearing strong. What breaks a heart like this is not one big event, but the constant act of self-erasure. They are shrinking themselves to make space for everyone else. They are editing their feelings so they do not inconvenience you. They are choosing your comfort over their healing. And the cruelest part is that they believe this sacrifice is invisible, that no one will ever notice the cost they are paying. But hearts do not break without leaving echoes. You are starting to feel those echoes now. I need you to understand something rare and powerful. Not everyone is loved like this. Not everyone has someone who would carry pain in silence just to keep their world stable. This person sees dangers you do not see. They sense storms before clouds appear. They know truths that would shake you, and they lock those truths inside themselves like a promise they are terrified to break. They believe that revealing everything would hurt you more than hiding it. So they become the shield. They become the wall. They become the one who absorbs impact so you can walk forward untouched. But shields crack. Walls fracture. And when they do, the damage is silent until it is sudden. The reason their heart is breaking quietly is because they have made you the center of every decision, even the ones that cost them their peace. This kind of love does not scream. It whispers. And whispers are the easiest things to miss until they stop completely. This is where the story shifts, and this is why you were meant to hear this now. A heart that breaks quietly does not want pity. It wants understanding. It wants to be seen without having to beg for attention. This person does not need you to fix them. They need you to notice them. To see the pauses between their words. To feel the weight behind their smiles. To recognize that strength does not mean absence of pain. The truth they are hiding is not meant to push you away, but to protect you. And yet, protection that costs a soul is not protection, it is slow surrender. If nothing changes, their silence will grow heavier, and their distance will feel like coldness. Not because they love you less, but because loving you this way is draining the last light from their heart. What happens next depends on awareness. And awareness, my beloved child, has just begun. Now hear this carefully, because this part is the turning point most people never reach. The one whose heart is breaking quietly has started questioning something dangerous, not you, not love, but themselves. They are asking whether their silence has meaning or if it has simply made them invisible. Every time they chose not to speak, they hoped someone would notice without being told. Every time they stayed strong, they secretly wished someone would say, "You do not have to be strong today." But that moment never came, and so the weight grew heavier. They began to wonder if their existence is only valuable when they are useful, calm, or needed. This is where hearts fracture the deepest, not from rejection, but from feeling replaceable while giving everything. They are not angry. They are exhausted. And exhaustion has a way of erasing joy before it erases hope. This is the stage where love becomes painful not because it is gone, but because it is unreturned in the way it is given. Something even more unsettling is happening beneath the surface. This person has started preparing themselves for loss without telling anyone. Not because they want to leave, but because they are afraid of what will happen if they stay and nothing changes. They imagine futures where they finally speak and everything collapses. They imagine futures where they stay silent and slowly disappear. Neither future feels safe. So they live in a constant state of emotional readiness, bracing for impact that never comes, yet drains them daily. This quiet preparation looks like emotional distance, like distraction, like sudden calm where there should be warmth. But inside, it is chaos controlled by discipline. They are training their heart to survive without reassurance. They are teaching themselves not to expect too much. This is not strength. This is survival mode disguised as maturity. And the tragedy is, no one applauds survival done quietly. Let me reveal something most people never realize until it is too late. When someone breaks quietly for too long, they do not explode. They detach. One day they wake up and the pain feels familiar, manageable, almost normal. That is the most dangerous moment. Because when pain becomes normal, love starts losing its urgency. They stop asking questions. They stop hoping for change. They stop believing their voice matters. From the outside, they seem peaceful. From the inside, they have already mourned what they wished this connection could be. This is where hearts do not scream for help anymore. They simply grow distant. Not to punish. Not to manipulate. But because distance hurts less than expectation. And once someone learns how to live without emotional oxygen, they rarely remember how to ask for air again. There is a truth here that may shock you. This person is not afraid of being misunderstood. They are afraid of being understood too late. They fear that the moment you finally see their pain will be the moment they no longer feel it the same way. They worry that if they open their heart now, it will sound like a complaint instead of a confession. They are scared that timing has betrayed them, that silence has changed the story permanently. So they wait for a sign, something small but undeniable, proof that their presence is felt even without explanation. A question asked at the right moment. A pause long enough to listen. A recognition that does not require them to bleed first. Until then, they keep carrying everything alone, convincing themselves that love is proven by endurance, not expression. That belief is slowly dismantling them. Understand this, and understand it deeply. A heart that breaks quietly does not need grand gestures. It needs interruption. It needs someone to stop the pattern before it hardens into fate. If this silence continues, it will not end with drama. It will end with emotional absence that feels sudden only to the one who never looked closely. The person you thought would always be there will still be there, but not in the same way. Their laughter will sound lighter. Their concern will feel polite. Their love will feel controlled. Not because they stopped caring, but because caring without being seen taught them how to withdraw. What comes next is not inevitable, but it is approaching. And whether this story becomes one of healing or quiet separation depends on what happens after this realization. The heart that is breaking quietly is still waiting, but it cannot wait forever. There is something you must grasp now, something most people never see while it is still alive and breathing. The person whose heart is breaking quietly has reached a point where memory hurts more than reality. They remember how they used to feel when being silent felt noble, when sacrifice felt meaningful, when patience felt like love. Now those same memories sting, because they reveal how long they have been standing still while everything else moved forward. They replay moments where they almost spoke, almost reached out, almost chose themselves, and then pulled back at the last second. Not because they were unsure, but because they were afraid of changing how you see them. They trained themselves to be the safe place for everyone else, never realizing that safe places are rarely checked for damage. Over time, they stopped asking for emotional shelter because they believed needing it would make them a burden. This belief settled deep inside them, shaping every choice, every silence, every smile that arrived a second too late. And slowly, quietly, their heart learned how to ache without making a sound. Pay attention to this next truth, because it explains everything you have been sensing but could not name. This person has begun to emotionally ration themselves. They measure how much they give. They limit how much they feel. They control how much they care, not because love is fading, but because love without relief is unbearable. They have learned that giving fully leads to emptiness, so they now give carefully, strategically, quietly. You may feel them pulling back in ways that do not make sense. Shorter conversations. softer reactions. Less urgency in their voice. This is not disinterest. This is self-preservation. Their heart is not closing, it is protecting what little strength remains. They are trying to survive without making anyone uncomfortable. They are trying to exist without asking for permission to feel. And every time they choose restraint over honesty, a small part of them grieves what they are becoming. Here is where the story becomes even more unsettling. This person does not believe anyone would choose them if they revealed the full truth of their inner world. They believe they are loved for what they provide, not for who they are when they are tired, uncertain, or afraid. So they hide those parts carefully, polishing the version of themselves that feels acceptable. They have confused being needed with being valued. They have confused endurance with loyalty. And they have confused silence with maturity. These confusions did not come from nowhere. They came from experiences where vulnerability was ignored, dismissed, or misunderstood. Each time they opened up and felt unseen, they learned to close a little more. Now, they are fluent in restraint. They know exactly how much of themselves to reveal to keep the peace. But peace built on self-denial is not peace, it is slow erosion. Something irreversible starts forming when a heart breaks quietly for too long. The person begins to detach from their own desires. They stop imagining a future where they are fully met. They stop expecting emotional safety. They tell themselves that this is just how life works, that wanting more is unrealistic, that asking for understanding is too much. This is the most dangerous lie of all. Because when someone stops believing they deserve to be heard, they also stop believing they deserve to stay. They do not plan an exit loudly. They prepare for it internally. They grow comfortable with emotional distance. They practice being okay without reassurance. They teach themselves not to miss what they never received. And one day, when change finally appears, they may not recognize it as something meant for them anymore. This is the moment you were meant to arrive at, whether you realize it or not. A heart that breaks quietly does not announce its limits. It reaches them silently. The person you are thinking about is closer to that edge than anyone knows. Not because they are weak, but because they have been strong for too long without rest. What they need now is not confrontation, not pressure, not dramatic confession. They need safety to exist as they are. They need to feel that their presence matters even when they are not performing strength. If that safety does not arrive, they will continue to fade gently, politely, without blame. And one day, you may look back and wonder when exactly things changed. The truth is, they changed slowly, in silence, while you were both still standing in the same place. And what comes next will decide whether this quiet breaking becomes healing, or the beginning of an ending no one saw coming. There is a realization forming inside them now, subtle but powerful, and once it fully settles, nothing remains the same. They are starting to see that love which requires constant self-silencing is not love that nourishes, it is love that consumes. This thought scares them, because it challenges everything they have built their identity around. They have always been the one who adapts, the one who understands, the one who waits. But now a quiet question echoes inside their chest, one they never allowed themselves to ask before. Who holds me when I am tired? Who listens when I finally speak? This question does not come with anger, it comes with clarity. And clarity is dangerous when it arrives late, because it shows you exactly how much you have endured without complaint. Their heart is not breaking from one person or one situation, it is breaking from the realization that they abandoned themselves too many times in the name of peace. Something else is happening at the same time, something most people misinterpret completely. They are becoming calmer, more composed, less reactive. This is not healing. This is emotional withdrawal done gracefully. They are no longer arguing with reality. They are no longer hoping it will suddenly change. They are conserving energy. They are choosing silence not as sacrifice, but as boundary. From the outside, it looks like maturity. From the inside, it feels like grief processed in private. They are slowly detaching expectations from people they once trusted deeply. They are lowering emotional volume so disappointment hurts less. This is the phase where people say, they seem different lately. Yes, they are different. They are no longer pouring from an empty place. They are protecting what remains of themselves, even if it means being misunderstood. Here is a truth that may unsettle you. This person has already accepted the possibility of being alone emotionally, even if they are not alone physically. They have made peace with the idea that connection may never feel the way they once hoped. This acceptance did not come from strength, it came from exhaustion. When hope is stretched too thin for too long, it transforms into quiet resignation. They stop fighting for closeness. They stop asking for depth. They stop explaining what hurts. Not because they do not care, but because explaining without change feels humiliating. They begin to believe that their emotional needs are excessive, when in reality they are simply unmet. And once someone accepts emotional solitude, convincing them to open up again becomes almost impossible. This is the most fragile stage of all, and almost no one recognizes it in time. The heart that breaks quietly does not ask for reassurance anymore. It stops signaling distress. It becomes self-contained, inward, distant in a way that feels peaceful but is actually final. They are no longer waiting to be chosen. They are learning how to choose themselves without announcing it. This choice does not come with drama or threats. It comes with emotional neutrality. With less attachment to outcomes. With a soft readiness to walk away if staying requires further self-erasure. This is not revenge. This is recovery attempted alone. And the tragedy is, if someone notices only when the warmth is gone, the window for healing may already be closing. Understand this final truth of this part. A quietly breaking heart does not want to be rescued at the last moment. It wants to be met before it has to disappear to survive. If recognition arrives now, it can still change the story. But recognition must be real, consistent, and safe. Not sudden intensity. Not temporary attention. Safety. Presence. Listening without defense. If that does not happen, the person will continue forward, calm, polite, composed, carrying less love not because they have less to give, but because they finally decided to stop giving it where it costs them their soul. What happens after this point will not look dramatic. It will look normal. And that is exactly why it is so easy to miss, until the silence becomes permanent. There comes a moment, quiet and almost invisible, when the heart stops breaking and starts deciding. This moment does not arrive with tears or speeches. It arrives with stillness. The person you are thinking about has begun to feel a strange calm where pain once lived loudly. This calm is not relief. It is resolution forming silently. They have finally understood that love should not require them to disappear in order to survive. They are no longer asking why things feel heavy. They already know the answer. They carried too much alone for too long. They stayed silent when their voice mattered. They waited where they should have been met halfway. This realization does not make them bitter. It makes them distant in a way that feels permanent. Because once someone understands that their pain was preventable, they stop negotiating with it. Their heart is no longer cracking. It is closing a chapter quietly. What most people never notice is that this person is no longer hoping for change. Hope was the first thing to get tired. Hope required waiting, explaining, believing without evidence. Now they operate from acceptance. Acceptance that they did their best. Acceptance that their needs were real. Acceptance that love should feel safer than this. This acceptance changes everything. They stop checking for signs. They stop reading between lines. They stop interpreting silence as something temporary. They see things clearly, without emotional fog. And clarity, once gained, cannot be undone. You may still see them smile. You may still hear them speak kindly. But inside, they are no longer emotionally negotiating their worth. They have already decided that being unseen is not something they are willing to endure anymore. This decision is quiet, but it is final. Here is the revelation that most people realize only after it is too late. When someone stops breaking quietly, it is not because they healed, it is because they chose themselves without permission. They did not wait to be understood. They did not wait to be validated. They stopped placing their heart in spaces where it was repeatedly overlooked. This does not mean they stopped loving. It means they changed how they love. With boundaries. With distance. With self-respect that no longer bends to keep others comfortable. The warmth you once felt from them may still exist, but it no longer reaches the same depth. Not because they are cold, but because depth without safety taught them restraint. They learned the hard way that constant giving without receiving erodes the soul. There is a quiet grief that comes with this stage, and it is not about losing others. It is about mourning the version of themselves who believed endurance was enough. They grieve the time they spent waiting to be noticed. They grieve the words they never said. They grieve the emotional honesty they postponed to keep peace. But grief, when processed fully, becomes strength. And this strength does not seek approval. It does not explain itself. It simply moves forward. They are no longer afraid of distance. They are no longer afraid of being alone emotionally. They have already lived in that space while being present. Anything beyond that feels survivable. And that realization makes them impossible to manipulate with silence or neglect ever again. This is where the story truly rests, and this is why you were meant to hear it. A heart that breaks quietly does not ask for rescue. It asks to be met before it learns how to leave emotionally. If you recognize this truth now, something can still shift. Not through words, but through presence. Not through promises, but through consistency. But if this moment passes unnoticed, the person will continue forward calmly, gracefully, without resentment. And one day, you may feel their absence even while they are still there. Not because they vanished, but because they finally stopped giving their heart to a place that taught it how to break.